I'm now honored to introduce Congressman Khanna, who is also spearheading this important piece of legislation.
Well, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Representative Summerlee, for your leadership, for being a voice of the grassroots and people instead of special interests. You've always shown courage in standing up for people and grassroots causes. And thank you to Larry Lessig. I was a research assistant for him once, a long time ago. He's been sounding the alarm on the money in politics for almost 20 years. And Larry, keeps getting worse. I don't know how effective you've been, but but you've been sounding the alarm. And at some point, people are going to realize how corrupt the system has become. We have an unholy alliance in this country between wealth and power. We fought a revolution in America so that people would have a say in self-governance, not so they could be passive bystanders watching billionaires fund television and digital ads and having little say in outcomes. Obviously, it's been most abused in the past election by Musk and by super PACs that are now threatening members of Congress and senators if they vote the wrong way. But being honest, it's being abused by all parties on both sides. I mean, you have billionaires that funded the Harris campaign with super PACs. You have billionaires that funded the Trump campaign. It has to end. And what Representative Summerlee is proposing is common sense, because it passed, as Larry will go into, I'm sure, in more detail, in Maine. It passed with Republican support, it passed with independent support and Democratic support. All it's saying is you shouldn't be able to give a super PAC more money than you give a candidate, in a simple sentence. I mean, why is it that someone who's a billionaire is restricted in contributing to me? They can't contribute more than $7,000 in an election cycle to me. And yet they can go spend millions of dollars on a super PAC. It makes no sense. The Supreme Court, even this Supreme Court, has held that contribution limits to candidates are constitutional, even under Citizens United. Well, there's no reason if contributions to candidates are constitutional, contribution limits to candidates are constitutional, that you shouldn't have contribution limits be constitutional for the Supreme Court. And Maine passed it, and what Summerlee is trying to do is make sure that what Maine passed with 70% becomes federal law, so that if you want to have a super PAC for $7,000, you can. But what you can't do is have multi-millions of dollars in these super PACs, taking away agency from citizens. There should be a whole group of Republicans here. They should be here more than anyone, because they're the ones who are facing the biggest threats of these super PACs. And it really, I don't view this as a partisan issue. I view this as an issue of restoring the heartbeat of democracy, of restoring a democracy where you have to actually go be in town halls, earn people's votes by knocking on doors and talking to people, not just by relying on a couple of very, very wealthy people to run elections. Let me end with this point. I think that the country at this moment is very similar to where we were in the 1920s. They called them the Roaring 20s. There was, at the time, a lot of technology advance, the automobile, radio, television, and there was a view amongst the entrepreneurial business class, and that view was embodied by Andrew Mellon, who was the Treasury Secretary. He was sort of the quote-unquote billionaire of his time who had come into government. And what Mellon believed is that the country's progress was being led by business leaders and technology leaders, and ordinary Americans sort of were unworthy. He actually called them incompetent. And he said that they were on the public dole, they shouldn't really have a place, just give the power to the technology and business leaders. Liquidate, he said, government, liquidate labor, liquidate stocks. And Herbert Hoover listened to him, and he did exactly that. And then they learned their lesson. We had a Great Depression. And the lesson that we learned was that actually what builds the American economy, what builds our country, are ordinary, hardworking Americans. Well, we learned that lesson up till about now, and now they're trying to unlearn that lesson and go back to the 1920s. Same attitude, different generation. They think they're original, but it's the same story in history. They think they know better than ordinary Americans, and they're making the same mistakes. That's why consumer confidence is down, inflation is up, because we know in this country that it's ordinary Americans who build the nation. And what this bill does is it restores power to those ordinary Americans. So thank you, Summer, for working on it. I hope we can get a wide bipartisan group of our colleagues on this bill.